This guy goes hiking alone in a canyon and gets trapped with an 800-pound boulder crushing onto his arm, and his only way out was something that most people wouldn't even dare let their bodies do. So his name is Aron Ralston. He's 26 years old, living in Aspen, Colorado, and ever since he was a kid, he always had one dream: to climb all 59 of Colorado's highest mountains. Mountains so tall that the air at the top is thin enough to make your head spin, even if you're just standing still. And although he knew how dangerous this dream was, by the time the story takes place, Aron had actually successfully climbed 45 of the 59 mountains. And so on the morning of April 26, 2003, Aron woke up, threw some gear into his backpack, and decided that he was gonna go to Utah and hike through the Blue John Canyon. Now, normally before heading out to do something this dangerous, he would sit down and write out a full itinerary for his roommates, like where he was going, the exact routes that he was gonna take, and the date that he would be back, so that if something were to go wrong, his roommates would know precisely where to send help. But this time, he decided to hike this canyon so spontaneously that he didn't really have a full plan or itinerary to give anyone. He only decided to do this trip because originally Aron had planned it with his hiking friend. But they ended up canceling last minute, and instead of wasting that time, he kind of just decided, you know what, let me just climb the Blue John Canyon anyways. So that day, he pulled out a piece of notebook paper to leave for his roommates, and he wrote down one word: Utah. That's it, just Utah. Which means that if Aron got injured out there, or lost, or even worse, died, the only information they would have to go off is the name of a state that covers 85,000 square miles of desert, canyon, and mountain range. When he gets to the head of the trail, he parks his truck, swings on his backpack, and hops on a mountain bike, pedaling south down a long dirt road that cuts straight through the Utah desert until he finally reached the head of Blue John Canyon. He locks his bike to a juniper tree on the side of the road, and then he starts walking in on foot. It's an absolutely beautiful day out there. The sky above him is just this thin ribbon of blue between two walls of red rock, and it's just him, his thoughts, and the canyon. He reaches this drop off in the canyon wall about 12 feet down, with a boulder the size of a large bus wedged between the walls below him. And Aron does the math. If he steps onto the boulder, he could just dangle himself off of it, drop to the floor, and keep moving. Simple. He's done moves like this hundreds of times. So he reached onto it, tests it with a couple of kicks, really feels its hold, and he starts lowering himself down. But then out of nowhere, the boulder slightly shifts as he hangs over its edge. He lets go instinctively, knowing that was trouble, and he drops to the canyon floor like 10 feet down. And when he looks up, there's rock particles falling onto his face. So he quickly wipes them away to get a closer look at the top, and that's when the 800-pound boulder consumes his sky view, falling directly over him. Fear shoots through his body, and with no time to consciously react, he lifts his hands over his head for protection. The falling rock came down and crushed his right arm straight into the canyon wall, trapping it there, peeling the skin clean off his forearm. The pain hits him like nothing he's ever felt, and he lets out this sharp fuck and starts yanking his arm out. His body shoves against the boulder, really getting his knees under it, pushing with everything he has. Come on, move! But nothing happens. He takes a breath and forces himself to slow down, and he says out loud, okay, it's time to relax. The adrenaline is not going to get you out of here. Let's look at what we've got. He reaches his left hand over the gap above the boulder to touch his right thumb, and he can't feel it at all. He can't feel any of his hand. And his fingers, when he grabs them, he notices that they're crooked sideways in an unnatural type of way. And so his brain just starts going at itself. Like, how did this happen? How did you let this happen? Your hand is crushed. It's trapped between the boulder. There's nothing you can do. But then he snaps himself out of it, saying, no, shut up. That's not helpful. Because right now, his arm isn't even the biggest problem. He's currently in the middle of the desert where nobody knows where he is. There's no cell service to call for help. And worst of all, he has no water. No way of keeping himself alive for God knows how long. So he starts doing the math in his head. He's like, okay, the average survival time in the desert is 2, maybe 3 days. Even less if you're out here sweating in 100-degree heat. And just his luck, he's already out here sweating in 100-degree heat. So he comes to the realization that if he doesn't find a way out of here within the next day, He will die out here. So he starts running through all of his options. He can try to chip the rock around his hand with his multi-tool, hoping that it'll loosen the rock and he can wiggle his hand out. He can try to rig some type of anchor system above him and lift the boulder off. Or, and he pushes this one to the back of his mind, he can amputate his arm. He goes with the first option. He pulls out his multi-tool, unfolds the blade, and starts sawing into the boulder, trying to chip away as much rock as possible. It barely leaves a scuff. He changes his grip and stabs at it, but still nothing. He tried building a pulley system that'll lift the boulder off, even if it was just a couple of inches, but it never moved the rock a single inch. After a full day later of being trapped in the canyon with an arm that's slowly and painfully being crushed, Aaron is sweating, panting, running on nothing but hunger, thirst, and pain. And so he stops chipping at the rock for a second just to take a breath. And that's when he hears it. Voices. They're distant, echoing through the canyon walls, but it's voices, like actual human voices. And not wanting to waste another second, he just screams, "Help!" And then he waits, completely still, trying to control his breathing, but nothing comes back. So he screams again, louder this time, with this desperate, shaky tone to it, waiting again, listening as hard as he possibly can. But slowly, they start dissolving into something else. The scraping, scratching sounds of a kangaroo digging around in its nest somewhere in the canyon walls. It wasn't a person. It never was. By day 3, any snack that he had was gone. He's been drinking his own urine just to stay hydrated, and his arm stopped feeling like his arm. And somewhere in those quiet hours, sitting alone in that canyon with nothing but his own breathing, it really starts to settle in. He might actually die here. And not wanting to disappear into the canyon like he was never there, not wanting his family to spend the rest of his lives with no answers, no closure, nothing to hold on to, he pulls out his multi-tool and starts carving into the sandstone wall. He engraves his name, his date of birth, and the date that he believes he's going to die. And then he pulls out his camera, points at himself, and just talks.
Aaron Ralston. My parents are Donna and Larry Ralston of Englewood, Colorado. Whoever finds this, please make an attempt to get it to them. Be sure of it. I would appreciate it.
And then he just waited for the night to take him, fully expecting that he will be sent to a place where his arm will no longer be in pain. But it doesn't. Instead, somewhere in the darkness, as his body starts to give out and his eyelids can't hold itself open anymore, he has a dream. And in that dream, he sees a little boy, maybe 3 years old, running towards him across this beautiful sunlit floor. And he reaches down and scoops him up with his left arm, because in this dream, his right arm isn't there. And he just gets this overwhelming feeling that this little boy is his son. A son that doesn't even exist yet. And then his eyes snap open, and when he looks at his arm on day 6, he starts noticing it's starting to decompose. It's giving off this smell in the air, a smell of dead carcass, and something inside of him just snaps. He starts yanking at his arm, trying to rip it free, like he's just trying to tear himself away from it, because he doesn't want it anymore. It's not part of him. It's rotting. It's dead, and he wants it gone. And he looks down at his multi-tool, the same little cheap blade that couldn't even leave a mark on the boulder, and he starts thinking, if he twists his arms against the rock at just the right angle with enough force, then he could snap his bones and cut through whatever's left. So he does it. He takes a breath, positions his arm, and he twists in half and feels both of his bones snap. He picks up the blade again, cutting through tissue, through tendon, using tubing as a tourniquet, saving the major arteries for last so that he doesn't bleed out before he's done. It takes about an hour to do all of this. And I'm not going to try to sit here and explain to you what an hour of that felt like. I don't think there's words for it, honestly, but he gets through it. And when he's done, he pulls himself free. He climbs out of that slot canyon, rigs an anchor at the top, and rappels 65 feet down the other side. One-armed, severely dehydrated, running on nothing but urine juice, and he starts walking 6 miles through the desert, bleeding through the tourniquet, until he reaches a Dutch family out hiking who gives him water and flags down help. 4 hours after he cut his own arm off, A helicopter finds him and they pull him up and bring him straight to a hospital. It took 13 rangers, a hydraulic jack, and a winch to move the boulder and recover what was left of his arm. As of today, Aron Ralston is still alive and well. He went on to write a book about his experience, and the story was actually turned into an amazing movie called 172 Hours. He now travels the world as a public speaker, sharing his incredible story. In 2010, he had a son, a boy he named Leo, and when he looked at his son for the first time, it almost seemed like he recognized him. It was the same little boy, the same face from the dream that he had in the canyon, the one he reached down and picked up with his left arm. The one who had made him decide that he wasn't done yet. Ah, what a beautiful ending. That is all that I have for today, you guys. I love you. Thank you for sticking with me through this story. Mwah, group hug.